The first time Anna saw him, she felt something inside her shift, like the quiet cracking of a long-frozen river finally letting the water beneath breathe again. She had lived 40 years without ever knowing what real love felt like, without a single moment when someone looked at her as if she were the center of their world. She had told herself she was fine, that life was still beautiful without romance, that maybe some people were meant to live softly and alone. But on that golden evening, as the sun bled into the horizon and the wind bent the tall grass into slow waves, she met a man who looked like he had been carved out of storms, a rough, restless rider leaning against a fence with a motorcycle waiting behind him, as if he had nowhere to go and no one waiting for him. If you believe in kindness, new beginnings, and the power of second chances, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support means everything. Anna had spent most of her life hiding in plain sight. She worked quiet jobs, lived in a small rented home, and kept her heart wrapped in layers of caution shaped from years of being overlooked, ignored, or told she wasn't enough. Her past was full of moments where she almost believed she deserved loneliness. She wasn't bitter, just used to disappearing into the background. But that day she had taken a walk down a rural road she rarely visited, trying to breathe after a difficult morning. She didn't expect to meet anyone, much less someone who seemed as out of place as a lightning bolt in a field of daisies. He was leaning against the fence with a look that carried the weight of 1,000 unspoken wounds. Later, she would learn his name was Mason, and that he rode with a biker group known for hard living and harder choices. But in that moment, she simply saw a man who looked exhausted from fighting battles no one else could see. His leather jacket was worn, patched with the rough identity of a life lived on the edge, yet his eyes gave him away. There was sorrow there, raw and unguarded, like he wasn't sure if he wanted the world to see him or forget him. Anna wasn't impulsive, but something inside her nudged her forward. She asked if he was all right. He startled, as if kindness was unfamiliar to him, but he eventually admitted his bike had overheated and he'd been stranded for hours because he didn't want to call anyone from his group. "They've got enough trouble without me," he murmured, not meeting her gaze. She offered him water. He accepted with hesitation, like he didn't trust good things to come without price. That small act became the thread that slowly stitched two lonely worlds together. Anna found herself talking to him in a way she hadn't spoken to anyone in years. She told him small, honest pieces of her life, not everything, but enough for him to see the gentleness in her heart. He listened in silence, leaning against the fence, the setting sun casting warm gold over his bruised spirit. And when he finally spoke, his story came out like gravel sliding down the side of a mountain. He told her about the people he'd lost, the choices he regretted, the nights he drank just to feel numb, the days he rode until the wind drowned out the noise in his mind. And beneath all that, he admitted something that surprised her. He felt utterly alone, even when surrounded by his biker brothers. Something in Anna softened further because loneliness was a language she understood too well. Over the next days he returned, sometimes on purpose, sometimes because he just happened to be riding by. They talked near the old wooden fence, sometimes sitting on it as the sun dipped, sometimes standing in silence that felt strangely comforting. Anna felt alive in ways she had forgotten were possible. Mason, rough, weathered Mason, began to unravel in her presence, revealing a vulnerability he'd kept buried beneath leather and road dust. And Anna, after 40 years of protecting her heart, found herself slowly opening the gates she thought had rusted shut, but their worlds were not simple. Mason carried the weight of a life that could easily burn someone as gentle as Anna. One evening, he showed up looking shaken, a storm raging in his expression. He told her he didn't want to pull her into the chaos of his world, that she deserved a calm kind of love he didn't think he could give. He said he wasn't good for her. Anna felt the old ache rise in her chest, the fear that she wasn't worth staying for, but this time she didn't let it consume her. Instead, she stepped closer and simply placed a hand over his, and something in him broke. Not in the way things shatter, but in the way cages break open. He told her no one had ever looked at him like she did, with warmth, without judgment, without expecting him to be more than the broken man he already was. He hadn't known tenderness in years, and certainly not from someone who lived with such purity. Mason realized he was terrified, not of the danger of his life, but of the possibility that someone like Anna might actually care about him. Their connection grew slowly, carefully, tenderly. Mason started working on himself. Small steps, but real ones. He tried to distance himself from the violence he'd once lived in, seeking peace instead of punishment. Anna, who had never been touched by real romance, found herself learning what it felt like to be adored by someone who saw her not as invisible, but as irreplaceable. He treated her with a reverence that surprised even him. He didn't rush her, didn't push her, didn't question her past. When she told him softly, one trembling afternoon, that she had never been with anyone, he looked at her like she had handed him something precious, not with judgment, not with shock, but with a quiet, profound respect that made her eyes fill with tears. Their love didn't come with fireworks or dramatic declarations. It came with small miracles, trust forming in places once broken, fear turning into hope, and two lonely souls realizing they were no longer wandering alone. Months passed, and the world around them seemed to soften. Mason found new purpose. Anna found new confidence. And together they built something neither had dared to believe in, a life where pain didn't define them, where love didn't wound, where healing wasn't just possible but inevitable. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us bring more meaningful stories to the world. Before you go, tell us in the comments what part of this story moved you the most. And just like that, what began as a chance encounter at a quiet fence line turned into something rare and extraordinary, a reminder that it's never too late for love, never too late for healing, and never too late for a miracle.